Aloha everyone, welcome to today's live stream. This live stream is part of Innovate Hawaii, which is a meetup here in Honolulu. We'll be talking about our wonderful new Pi, which just arrived on the market, developed by Pycom, which is based out of Europe. And as you can see here, I have my Pi module here in Hawaii. I'm not sure if anybody else in Hawaii has this module, but it is currently on the island. So we're going to be talking about this Pi module. So first of all, we're going to talk about what is Pi. So the Pi module consists of 5 networks in one perfectly formed same small footprint as the Wi-Fi, Low-Pi, and Sci-Pi. So if you're not familiar with these devices, these are all IoT devices that are embedded systems. They run on top of MicroPython, and it is enabled with MicroPython. You can use it to program it with an Arduino IDE. It features Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, Sigfox, which is both low energy, efficient transmission protocols, and also contains a dual LTE and NB-IoT technologies for wireless access. Currently in Hawaii, as far as I know, Verizon is currently certified on this device, LTE Cat M1 certified with Verizon here for use in Hawaii. As far as I know, last speaking with the business rep from Verizon, there is nobody currently utilizing the Cat M1 network, but it is fully available here in Honolulu. So just a quick overview of what the Pi is. So you can see that the Pi is relatively small. In fact, let me switch cameras here and you can see the Pi compared to my hand. So it's relatively small. It's not even bigger than my pointer finger. So it's relatively easy to use. It can fit in tight spaces. Here is the Pi, and we see here that on our desktop here we have the breakdown of what exactly is on the Pi. So the Pi includes the LTE Cat M1 NB1 transceiver, runs on 3.3 3-volt power supply, and it has an RGB heartbeat LED built into the board, so you can do cool stuff right off the bat. There is a built-in reset switch. And it has LoRa and Sigfox antenna connectors. It has a built-in 8 megabyte flash memory, 4 megabytes of RAM, external Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna connector. It's powered by the ESP32 dual-core microcontroller, which has both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.2 radio. It has an RF switch, an internal Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna built right into the board. It also has a nano SIM socket, which can fit the nano SIM from Verizon. I believe eventually AT&T will be certified to use this on their LTE Cat 1 network as well. And it has a built-in antenna connector right here on the board as well. So if you wanted to hook up your external antennas to the board, that would be possible as well. So just a little further breakdown of what is on this chip here. Here is the pinout for the Pi Um, these are all downloadable on Pycom's website, pycom.io. You can see all the information in regards to the PyPy and be able to download and learn how to basically implement the PyPy system into any embedded circuit that you'd like to make. This is comparable to a microcontroller such as Arduino. It does run on Python, so it's a little bit more powerful than your Arduino. Not running C++, but running a reduced version of Python, which is very powerful. Um, it can do multiple threading. So if you have any situation where you would need to run multiple threads, this would be a good IoT development device to get that up and running. So you are able to utilize an IDE, which is available. I currently use Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code has a plugin for the PyPy, and you are able to program that through using that Visual Studio Code plugin, and it uploads directly to the board via USB. So if you look here, you have our PyPy. Our PyPy has a built-in micro USB. Actually, the PyPy unfortunately does not have a built-in micro USB port. So what you would actually have to do is buy an expansion board, which I just so happen to have. And the expansion board has the micro USB port on it for powering and using your micro Python based IoT development board known as the PyPy. So with the PyPy, so it gives us instructions on how to install the PyPy correctly, and the PyPy is installed with, basically you can see it kind of lines up a certain way. If you put it the other way, it's going to overhang, so you don't want to put it that way. So this is the PyTrack module that I have. You can see it's kind of overlaps, which is incorrect. You would want to have it where it lines up perfectly. So we put it like this. We snap that down like that. And this has its own built-in antenna on here as well for the GPS. So this has a built-in GPS and accelerometer, as well as an SD card for data logging. This is called the PyTrack by Pycom, and I'll show you some information on their website about it. So this allows you to power up the PyPy. It gives you that micro USB port, which is located right there at the bottom. And all you do is plug it in, and it boots right up and begins running your Python files. So I currently have some code on here to run a beacon, to run a Bluetooth energy, low energy beacon that I'm using to develop a project here that's related to the construction industry. Which is the reason why I came across and decided to purchase the Pycom PyPy. So as you can see, it's booted up. That beautiful RGB heartbeat LED can be used to pulse any color you want. That heartbeat right there is basically a feature that you can turn on and off, and you can implement it in code when you want it to actually turn on. So that way you know that your code is actually running up to that point that it turned on. And there's consoles that you can use to view what the current status is of your code and do debugging, which is pretty cool. So like I said, this has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, and what LoRa is a long range, low power, low bandwidth technology that is used for monitoring remote devices or remote sensors. For instance, in the agricultural application, you can have the PhyPi monitoring soil moisture conditions for crops and be able to update over the internet via MQTT protocol and send a small packet of information just containing the moisture levels to a server that can basically alert you when the moisture level gets below a certain point that can impact your crops. Uh, this is one of the things that are still relatively new to Hawaii, which is the reason why I've started this program here. Um, I'm looking to develop a team that can basically provide these solutions to various businesses here in Hawaii that can utilize connected sensors to increase crop production or even just monitor current situations, water clarity, air quality, all of those different things can be monitored. Sorry, I pretty much got interrupted there. Um, Let me see. So this is the Pycom PhyPi. As you can see here, that it's currently running. It is currently plugged in to a USB port and is able to be um, spoken to via a command line utilizing a plugin for Visual Studio Code. So as you can see here, the MicroPython has those 5 technologies, which really makes it valuable in a sense for redundancy, allowing your device to stay connected over various communication protocols, um, utilizing LoRa and Sigfox, which is the efficient low power long range transmissions, well over 20 kilometers for the LoRa and Sigfox communication protocols, allow it to work in areas that are very remote and not readily accessible. And also just as far as saving time, instead of having to drive all the way out to an area to check on soil conditions, there's various modules that you can use to monitor, such as camera. They have a camera that you can connect to this. It'll send a image over to a web server at a set interval and be able to monitor crop conditions. visually and via data. So this is the Pycom PhiPi, which is part of the line of IoT devices available via Pycom, and you can visit them by going to pycom.io. And like I mentioned earlier, this is one of many different modules that they have, development modules that run on MicroPython. They have, if you come here to development boards, if you want to just get one specifically to support, just these two different technologies, there's the YPi, which has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. We have the LowPi, which is LoRa, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. The SciPi, which is Sigfox, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, and Sigfox on the LowPi. The GPi has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and LTE-M. And the PhiPi, which really doesn't cost that much more, has all 5 technologies built onto the board. So it's a real bang for your buck. The pricing is actually not that bad. We can actually go to the web shop right now and take a look at what the pricing is for the PhiPi. So like I mentioned earlier, you might have saw it just there briefly, some of the accessories that they're selling along with the PhiPi. So 54 euros. Let's see what 54 euros are right now. 54. Let's do a quick Google search on what 54 EU to USD is right now, and basically we're looking at 60 bucks, $66 right now for a 5 network IoT development device that has an ESP32 microprocessor on it. It's super powerful, running MicroPython. So there's they sell OEM embedded modules as well. The multi-pack, I preferred to actually buy the multi-pack that came with a expansion board. So I went with the PhiPi multi-pack, which comes with the 2 antennas. You can choose here on the website to choose the PySense, PyTrack, or expansion board, which basically the expansion board is pretty cool because it allows you to basically break out all the pins and be able to do something more complicated with versus going with like the PyTrack or the PySense. PySense basically allows you to check humidity and temperature and all of that kind of stuff. So if you wanted to keep track of, say for instance, the temperature in a room with equipment, server equipment, you wanted to be able to monitor that remotely. Again, this is Wi-Fi enabled, so you'd be able to connect it right to your Wi-Fi network and see that information streaming live. You can broadcast every second if you wanted to be able to really keep an eye on things while you're not there. PyTrack, if you wanted to stick this in, say for instance, a vehicle, you could put that with a lithium-ion battery pack. This has a built-in lithium-ion battery charger on the PyTrack expansion board, so you can plug in your LiPo battery right there and hook up your USB and it'll charge the battery. So it really makes it mobile. They even sell cases for these things, so you can choose what you want. I had the PyTrack, and then the bundle type is you can choose a standard bundle, which is one device. So 100 euros, I think it comes out to like $110 for the expansion board, 2 antennas, and the connectors for it. So it's super affordable. Anybody looking to develop an IoT device that has multiple redundant wireless technologies, this is definitely one of the better devices that has just hit the market. They're the only unfortunate thing with being so new, there aren't too many tutorials and there aren't too many example files to follow with developing with this. But if you're familiar with MicroPython, you'll catch right on. They have a full API library that will help you to use the hardware that's on the PhiPi to do some amazing things. Um, as you can see here, the node range is 40 kilometers. For you Americans, let's see what 40 kilometers to miles is. So this device is able to transmit and receive up to 24 miles away. I don't know if you realize how big that is, but in Hawaii, that's from Waianae all the way to Kaka'ako. Waianae to Kaka'ako. That's a far distance. That's almost half the distance between the island. So, and it is line of sight. So there are some certain restrictions, but the only downfall that I see with LoRa is the fact that LoRa is based on a point-to-point, and LoRa is not a commercially operated network, such as Verizon's LTE Cat M1. LTE Cat M1 has up to 10 megabits per second data rate, so you are able to do some interesting things with the Cat M1 network as far as sending imagery and keeping your data up to date. So that was the Pi from Pycom. If you folks have any questions, please email me, Wayne at himade.org. Wayne, W-A-Y-N-E, at himade.org. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Innovate Hawaii Meetup Introduction to Pycom's Pi 5 Network IoT Development Board. I hope you enjoyed what you watched, and I hope you learned something about this new device, and if you got any questions, please contact me. Have a great night, and I will see you folks on the next meetup.